So once again, welcome to Compliance Conversations.
That means I get to hold the
Oh no, in the midst of COVID-19, this is what I got to deal with, guys. Beyond licensing, filings with the Secretary of State and Department of Revenue offices are lean. Moving forward, I will let Ricardo in.
So everyone's mics have been muted, but if you are going to ask something, we'd like you to put your questions in the chat. But then later on, we're going to have an opportunity for everyone to just say hi. Because, I mean, this is also about, like, connecting. Hey, Dan, I love your background. Pretty cool. You know, today we're going to be talking about, like Ted said, filings for the Secretary of State. But first of all, Ted's going to introduce everyone that's going to be a presenter here today.
So we've got Russ Foster, who's the General Manager. We've got Sabrina Slater, the Annuals and Corporates Manager. And it just so happens, and she doesn't know this, happy anniversary. It's her 12th year with Ilse.
Thank you.
Happy
I didn't plan that either, I promise.
and Tamika Johnson, who's her supervisor in that department. Arlene?
Someone else trying to get in.
Oh my goodness.
We have as our chat manager today, Kelsey Kilpatrick. She is going to be manning the chat and taking everyone's questions. So we're happy to have her on board this week. So first of all, we're going to give you kind of like a rundown on some of the updates from the Secretary of State and the Department of Revenue, any extensions, things like that. And Sabrina is going to be kind of doing that. That's the kind of like the State of the Union. But before that, I want Russ, if you will please share the screen for our Ilse Newsroom, which is where we maintain all of the latest updates, all of the bulletins that are coming from the states, that's where we post them. So this is a wonderful place for you guys to go and check it out. And Sabrina is gonna start updating us on all of the COVID-19 extensions and what's going on.
Hello, everybody. So what we have here, this is on the Ilse website. We have a whole lot of resources that are out there for really anybody in the industry. And this particular one, I just got off the phone with Lisa, whose team keeps this up to speed. And they are, because of COVID-19, they are swamped with bulletins. But they don't just post the ones that we get. They actually go out and scour the state websites for more. And the way that this is organized on here, if you go to this page, you can search by tags. Like for our topic today, you may not be interested in the departments of insurance. You may want to look at Secretary of State bulletins. Well, if you click right there, there's all of the Secretary of State bulletins up to date from all the different states that have posted bulletins. So this is a great resource. This will help you keep up to speed. And we have stuff on here oftentimes before it makes it onto the state websites. So please use that as a resource that's there for you. Also, if you need to look into a particular state, also under our resources tab, we have all the state regulators' contact information. So if you need to get a hold of somebody in the District of Columbia, it's got the Department of Insurance contact information, Secretary of State, Department of Revenue, whatever applies to that state. And you can either call them or go right to their information, emails, or to their website. So those are all out there for you. Feel free to bookmark those and use them anytime.
Awesome. And now Sabrina's just going to give us an update on what new things have been happening.
Awesome. Tag, we're it. I'm going to kind of start off with some of the updates, especially with the annual extensions at the Secretary of State, and then Tamika will take it with the Department of Revenue and the updates that we have at the DOR. So I want to start off with the annual report extensions. Arkansas, Kansas, and New Mexico have been extended to July 15th. Connecticut for LLCs and Florida has been extended to June 30th. Georgia and New Hampshire has been extended by 1 month. Illinois has a 90-day annual report extension issued from the day the state reopens. They're scheduled to reopen May 1st. Iowa will delay any administrative dissolution until July 15th, giving an extra 6 weeks of flexibility to correct any missed filings. Maryland has been extended by 3 months. Montana has no late fees until July 15th. Nevada has been extended by 60 days, and Washington has been extended by 60 days as well from the day the state reopens. North Carolina will not issue late fees until after June 15th. This applies to corporate and some partnership entities with the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2019, and all LLCs. And then last but not least, DC will not issue late fees until after June 1st. Now I just kind of want to go into some of the state-specific information, like just a little bit of tidbits here and there that we have received. Good Lord. Secretary of States that are open and doing business as usual, which means that you can still call, you can still send things, like nothing has changed, is Alabama, Delaware, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Vermont. Experiencing extreme delays is, of course, the infamous California and Illinois. As I mentioned earlier, Illinois is actually currently closed right now. They plan to open their doors back May 1st. As of right now, I've looked on their website. The last notice that I received is they still plan to open May 1st. Some of the states that are receiving email requests and filings, which means that if for some odd reason you can't do it online, they are accepting emailed copies of your filings, is the state of Connecticut, Georgia, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Mexico, New York, Ohio, Texas, Washington, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Those that have suspended all expedited services are the state of California, New Hampshire, New Mexico, and Pennsylvania. New Jersey has suspended the 1 hour, 2 hour, and the same day expedites only though. Kentucky is returning all filed stamped acknowledgments via email. Previously, they've actually mailed those out. They're just trying to cut down on the mail and actually send those electronically via email now. And last but not least, probably my favorite, is the state of Virginia is no longer using the use of the PIN. If any of you have tried to file an annual report and not had that PIN, good luck. They're only suspending it, unfortunately, until May 15th. I wish they would get away with it or go away with it indefinitely, but as of right now, it says May 15th. And then I kind of just want to give you guys know that we're dealing with this stuff every single day. Some of the stuff that I primarily work on are registrations with the Secretary of State, as well as the annual returns. From what I can see from a standpoint, processing is normal. It's just nothing much has changed. There's just, of course, to be delays to be expected. The majority of the counter, like walk-in services, all of those have been suspended, of course, due to COVID. That's a no-brainer. There's no face-to-face contact. If the state employees are actually in the office, they do allow like drop boxes or other opportunities to get those filings to you. And then one of the big things are like the requirements for registrations, like say you need a business license or at the Department of Insurance, but you need that registration or that certificate of authority in place before. Those have not been waived. Those requirements haven't been waived. Those are still in place, such as like Massachusetts or New York. If you need that certificate of authority for the license application process, you still have to do that. So it may take you a little bit longer to get those types of filings, but they're still required at the Department of Insurance. From an annual returns standpoint, you know, as I mentioned, the extensions and then getting in touch with the states, it's just a matter of, you know, you can call. Some of the states are working, state employees are working remotely, so you may be able to still get a hold of them on the phone. A lot of them are accepting emails, so if you can get in an email, it's just taking a little bit longer to get back to us, but especially if it's more detailed information that you're wanting, I would highly recommend sending those emails. They are getting to you that way too. So I will turn it over to Tamika, and she'll give you a little update on the Department of Revenues.
The major glaring change for corporate tax returns is basically that at the federal level, the federal IRS return has been extended to July 15th. For the most part, overwhelmingly, the states have extended their state tax returns to July 15th. And I'm going to emphasize here, this is for April 15th due dates. Those are now extended to April 15th. The only one that I've seen so far that's like the exception is Idaho for some reason. They're saying June 15th, they're going to be different. But so like if you had April, you had like it's not, July 15th is being treated as your original due date. So your payment, any payments that were due by April 15th, you can now file by July 15th. And one of my favorite resources is the AICPA website. So if you want to see like all the states and all that information and what every individual state is doing and for that type of taxes, I highly recommend going to that website. Also for withdrawals and reinstatements, there are going to be delays there. If you can do it online, then it'll be fine. But if you had tax clearances that are pending and some of those tax returns are going to be affected now by that extension of the federal due date and also the state tax returns, that's probably still going to be pending. There's two states that I want to bring up, New Jersey and Pennsylvania, because even before the COVID epidemic, they were an issue. It would take over a year to get a tax clearance from them, even for a basic return. So New Jersey has a program that's temporary through June 15th where
excuse me, could you repeat the website that you just mentioned?
AICPA. And so New Jersey had this streamlined website where they were trying to combine everything into like a one-time filing into a one-time payment, and you didn't have to get a tax clearance. But you're not saying that you don't owe taxes. You're still saying like you already handled that problem. You already handled your taxes, so they allow you to do that. But if you had a tax clearance issue pending before that, you can't really use that website. It goes through June 15th, but it really needs to be someone who's trying to withdraw now. So that one was taking a year. Pennsylvania is also taking a year before. So anything as far as tax clearances that there's a little more expensive is still going to be a major delay. But like I was saying, online filings are still good to go.
Wow, thank you so much for that update, ladies. If you guys think of some questions after this session is over, feel free to send Sabrina an email. Sabrina, if you'll please share your email.
Yes, you are more than welcome to shoot me an email. My name's Sabrina Slater, so it's sslater, SSLATER @ilseinc.com.
Fantastic.
All right, Kelsey, I believe you may have a couple of questions by now. Can you hit us with it, please?
Of course, I'd love to. The first one I'm going to ask, it was a previously sent in one. It says that I'm registered with the Secretary of State, but I never received a tax notice. How do I know I need to pay taxes?
Well, I highly recommend before you register with the Secretary of State that you find that out in advance. Some states will send notices, but they don't always. We've had certain states like New York and Rhode Island, where once we file like a tax clearance request, that's when people find out that they owe taxes. We had a client recently where they found out they had to file from 1997 to 2014. And the woman was like, I was in high school in 1997. And it's like, I can't help that. But it's kind of like, I see her point, but they actually want you to pay that. And then for most of those returns, it's $300 each. And it's all accrued interest and penalties from the last entry, until 2014 when they stopped requiring that return. So it's like, you should definitely check that out. California sends out like a little welcome letter that like you register with the Secretary of State. But I've seen, where people have gotten over the years after a return is due, they'll get a notice saying, oh, you owe this return for 2015, and they kind of just get it over and over again. So it's kind of like, we can't tell you whether or not you're legally required to register for a state. with the Secretary of State, there's certain licenses where before you can obtain a license, you have to register with the Secretary of State. It was kind of based on what kind of business you're doing. But once you do, that's what triggers our services pretty much. It triggers the annual and the biannual report filings with the Secretary of State, and it triggers those state tax filings. If you're not really doing any business, for the most part, it'd be like franchise tax filing, the Department's revenue. So it's like, if you're registering with Secretary of State, you should expect there's going to be some type of compliance necessary to keep it up.
Basically, don't assume just because you haven't received a notice that you don't have to pay the taxes. You do.
Yeah, they're going to get the money.
Kelsey, anything else?
Another one is, I filed my annual report by paper with the state, but online it doesn't show it's been received. Will there be a grace period for this period of time?
Definitely so. The majority of the states have required or extended the due dates, like I mentioned before. I know one of the issues that we had was with the state of Illinois. We actually filed a paper annual return. And I mean, we filed this about a month ago. So usually their processing time is not that long. So we're checking the websites to see if it's been issued or updated. And of course it hasn't been. Well, it's because they're closed. They're not even in the office. So that's not any fault of that entity. It's just a matter of, we got to wait until they get in the office, get a hold of it, can file it, and update the state. So there is definitely a grace period. The states are more than willing to work with you. They're just like us. They're going through the same things. They're working remotely. They're not even in their, I mean, they're in their house as well. So they understand what's going on. We're all in this together. So they're definitely more than willing to work with you. Now, if that annual return was probably due back in January, yeah, not so much. You're going to have a penalty. You're going to have some kind of, fee that you're going to have to pay in excess to whatever was originally required, because now you were late and you did have control of it.
Another one that we have is the federal return still needed for state tax returns regardless of the new extensions?
Yes, for the state tax returns, they still require either like information from the federal return. So we don't even start processing until we receive that federal return. Basically, that's where we get all the information from. We get the numbers, we find out, if any changes have occurred, the number of shareholders. So that has to happen first. So there's been an extension, and then you need to, if your federal return is not going to be due by its regular due date, then you need to consider state tax extensions.
Absolutely. What if the agency is trying to avoid filing an extension for what would have been an April 15th return?
Well, it kind of depends, because one of the things you have to consider, like usually when we're working with clients, the normal response we get is like, well, normally our accountant finishes our federal return by this time of the year. So we don't want to file the April extension because we think we're going to get it by, 4/1, like right on top of the due date. But you got to take into consideration that it's probably not normal this year. They're probably going through the same things we're going through right now. So so for now it's 7/15, but you need to talk to your accountant and find out if they're still going to be able to provide that federal return around the new extended due date. If not, then they need to consider filing the extensions. It's just, you got to have that communication, because there's no guarantee that they can keep that normal schedule.
Yes, absolutely. And another one we have is, how hard is it to reach the states right now? How long is it taking to process those filings?
Well, from the Secretary of State standpoint, I really haven't seen like a big work stoppage. A lot of our stuff within the last several years have been moved to online. So a lot of the states have their own, web portals, and you can submit, annual returns or even the registrations at the Secretary of State directly to them. And I mean, they're issued within 24 to 48 hours, or, like their normal processing time. Where I'm seeing delays is like when I have to have like supporting documents, like with the certificate of authority application. Sometimes you have to have name approval from the Department of Insurance, or even certified documents like the Articles of Incorporation. Some of those states, if you can't get that information directly from like their state website where you can print it off immediately, that's where you're going to see a delay. Somebody that has to physically take those papers, print them out, sign on there that it's been certified, and then mail it to you, you're definitely going to see a delay in there. And so with each of those tasks, that it's just going to prolong the process just a little bit.
And I'm finding like, responses from emails is still pretty good. I'm still getting a good turnaround on the emails. As far as like calling the states, there's some delays on that. There might be, like I had one person where I just got his voicemail, but he said, in New Jersey, you call this woman and she can help you. And sure enough, she was there. I don't know how she's doing, but she's like one person in all of New Jersey taking all the calls right now. So emails are good. Phones kind of an issue. Some states have live chats, but they're not like manned like they were before. So you just kind of have to pick your moment on that. But definitely I would try emails if you can get that through.
Another one we have says that they have a filing that requires a notary signature. How would you go about obtaining that? Is there another way of doing that with the shelter-in-place order?
I see the requirements for notarization primarily on like our DBA county filings that we do. There's several of those require like an actual notary signature, and you have to walk in, and you guys know the process. The states have allowed, they understand that there's a shelter in place, so they've actually extended 2 or 3 different options. One of them is like a mobile notary. Like if you don't have someone in office, like you can't go to the next room because the next room happens to be the kitchen, instead of the principal or the secretary who used to be your notary. You can call on a mobile notary, which is one of the things that California would allow. That's actually the only way they'll allow it right now if you need a document signed or notarized. And then states like, I believe it's Illinois and Indiana, that I know for a fact allow electronic online notarization. So that's an option too. Like you can actually do everything online. They can verify your identity, do everything, and there's no face-to-face contact, which is great. I just know for a fact that California, I have a client in California who's having issues with that. He's at home, and they have nobody to notarize it. And the only way that he can have that done is if somebody actually physically comes to his house and abides with all the social distancing laws and all that fun stuff. So it does make it a little bit more trickier, but there are definitely options for that.
Another question we have says that I'm working from home. How could I get my filings to the state by the due date? Are there any alternative ways that you can contact the state that wouldn't cause any issues?
A lot of them, like I said, all the states are pushing you. If it can be done online, do it online. Some are still accepting paper applications, but they have a drop box, and the states are checking those drop boxes throughout the day. I know one state even has like a security guard, like right there with the filings, who's like protecting the filings so that nobody steals them. So it's kind of cool. There's also other options where you can email, like I mentioned before. You can actually email them to the state. A lot of them are accepting that electronic signature, which is great. Evacs is another good one. I know in my home office, which happens to be my bedroom, I just have a laptop and a cell phone. So I know Tamika had an annual report screenshot.
This client, like, he went from the main contact, she forwarded it to one of the officers, and he was able to print it, but he didn't sign it. And I highly recommend set up your electronic signatures and your PDFs, or have something, because you have some states right now that are willing to accept things in a certain way that they weren't before. So take advantage of that. But all he could do was put it on his table and take a picture of it with his cell phone and send it back. And she was like, "Will that do?" And I'm thinking, like, I don't I don't know. I tried to crop it. It was all dark. Looked like it was diagonal and everything, but he did all that he could do from his home office. So I was like, we'll see what we can do with that. But it's kind of like people are getting creative, but just use like the Evacs in your email and all the fax and mail it. Set up your e-signatures. Kind of take advantage of this time to try to get that stuff out there.
Evacs is something that Tina just mentioned. I don't know if you guys have ever used that. I highly recommend it. Basically, it's sending a fax to any number, fax number, just like you normally would, but it's like a beautiful, pristine PDF copy, and then they mail it or, fax it to the state. So it definitely helps with the quality, and, if you're striving for professional, documents, and that's definitely a good option that you can use.
Next question kind of relates to that. Since most companies are remoting in, what do you think about the issue of having a limited number of employees during this period of time? Should they pick and choose which ones they have in the office? Like, how would you go about that?
Well, we have the people that are listed as Ilse contacts, but I highly recommend having like a plan, because when you're in the office, like, say we get an email from a client and we're all here together, and you just turn around and be like, hey, did you see this? And we come up with, look at the timeline, figure out how to make the solution to the problem, and we can all just brainstorm. You can't really do that as quickly remotely from home. You can talk to a person on a cell phone, you can do chat and all that kind of stuff, but it's not always the same thing. The issue right now are delays. So you're trying to avoid delays. So you need to have somebody that's going to respond quickly. And we always kind of had issues with certain some of the clients contacts that we have now. I'm like, I don't know why they picked them. I don't even think they looked at our email. I'm like, they'll do a read receipt. It's like, thank you, but actually read it and respond, they won't do it. But it's kind of like, you got to have somebody that's on it, because there's going to be delays. If there's certain issues that's going to take a long time, try to clear up what you can now, so when it does open back up, you can kind of just move on from there. So you got to have somebody that's going to be on it, and that's kind of the bottom line. And then we also do like Zoom with our team every week. So there's probably a lot of people that are doing that as well, and that's your chance to kind of talk about issues and how to resolve them.
It's a great opportunity for adult conversations too.
But I have noticed that kids pop in too. So I'm like, I'm meeting everyone's kids.
Not mine. I promise.
Okay, I have kids speaking to me. I'm like, hey, but it's kind of like, I'm meeting everyone's family. It's really lovely.
The next question we have kind of also relates to a previously asked question, that was, when the states aren't processing, are people still being fined?
No, if the states aren't processing, it's because they're literally shelter in place, the office is closed. So they're not going to, they're not gonna fine you just for that. As long as you're well within that extended due date, then you're fine. But I would highly recommend that if the state gives you, 2 months, 30 days, whatever that particular state is, get it within that time. I know a lot of our clients, if our feds were actually ready to go by 4/15 and we had our corporate tax returns, I told Tamika, I was like, no, let's get those out of here. We don't want to sit on those. If they're actually ready to go, let's go ahead and submit them to the state, because even if you wait to that extended due date, think of the backlog that's going to be when those states get back in that office. It's going to be a madhouse. So if you can do it now and you have the ability, then please do so. I would highly recommend that. I know that's what I'm telling my team to do. But if not, like I said, the state's going to understand that. They're right here with us. They're dealing with the same things that we're dealing with. And as soon as you can and you have that ability, then you can file that, as long as it's before that extended date.
And make sure that you keep proof. If you mail anything, try to mail it certified. Keep your emails, keep your payment confirmations, because you want to be able, if they lose it, you want to prove that you were within that time frame.
Definitely.
Yeah. And hey, Kelsey, before you go on to the next question, I want to welcome Deanna, who just joined us. Welcome, Deanna.
Hi, Deanna.
We shared some incredible resources. One thing is that we have all of the state's bulletins on our Ilse Newsroom. So feel free to go to ilseinc.com and go to our newsroom. We have, of course, those bulletins are coming out every single day. And then Tamika also shared a great resource, which was the website AICPA.
Yes.
You got it.
And so that's another resource for you. So welcome aboard. Also, just to let you guys know that we're going to be having these virtual sessions on a weekly basis on Thursdays, same time. Next week, we're going to be rotating and we're going to be taking questions on that have to do with the insurance departments. So licensing, renewal, CEs, like, what do agents do during this time? So next week's session will be on licensing.
I only have a few more questions left. Did you have something to say, Arlene?
Yeah, one other thing, guys, is you're able to send any questions that you have pertaining to the Secretary of State or the Department of Revenue filings. You can send those directly, like let's say you think of something later on. You can send those directly to Sabrina at Slater, SLATER, @ilseinc.com.
Arlene, I'm sorry, that's SSLATER at ilseinc.com. I got to make sure I get the questions.
Kelsey?
As I said, there's only a couple more questions left, so if you want to ask more, please feel free to write some in the chat, and I will be sure to let them know and relay these questions. The next question is there any advantage as a client to wait to file any of these things, the tax returns or the annual reports?
I know on the corporate tax side, one of the main things when it gets around, this time of year was that we had a lot of clients who didn't want to file state tax extensions. And the reason was because their federal term was almost complete. So if you have a situation where you feel your accounting firm can get it done by June 15th and the filing is not due until July 15th, you can save money on having to file extensions. You can save money there. You can hold on to the money a little longer if you need to, if there's any reason that you need to hold on to the money for a while. But outside of that, really you need to just get it filed and get it done. Yeah,
the sooner that you file it, the better for sure. There's really no benefit to extending that unless you truly need it. If for whatever reason you can't get into the office or you can't submit that, then by all means use that extension. That's what it's there for. It's there to help you guys. But if not, if you have the ability to work remotely, you have a laptop, you can go directly into the state's website and file that annual report online. Please do so. We highly recommend that. The fees aren't going to change unless you go past that extended due date. So, I mean, if you're going to pay it, whether you pay it here or 30 days from now, you're still going to have to pay those same fees. So you might as well get it over with. That's one less thing that you have to worry about. And you can go on about your day.
The next question may have also been already talked about, but it's saying, what if my feds aren't ready by July 15th? Then what do I do?
You need to file an extension. It's pretty much, it's kind of like, I mean, this has never happened before. Usually around this time of year, if you're a tax preparer, you're just thanking the Lord that you made it past April 15th, because it's like so hectic and so time consuming. And you just, you're done, but they're giving you 3 extra months. And it's kind of like, take it. I mean, take those 3 months, but don't procrastinate. Get it done. Get it done. Like, that's like, just starting a life with death and taxes. Like, get your taxes. They're going to get that money at some point. So
in your experience, what's the percentage of procrastinators out there?
We have so many. Oh my gosh, we started enforcing the rush fees. Like, we had it after last year. We're like, at it, because we have so many people. They outsource their stuff to us, and you have an accountant that's doing it, and they don't have the time to file all those state returns. So I'm grateful for their business, but it's like right on the due date. Right on the due date. You less than a week. It's like, here, I give you the feds, do 500 returns, and it's like,
with no extension.
And it's at the beginning of the year, March 15th, April 15th, those calendar years, and it's September 15th and October 15th, and it's right on there. So it's kind of like, it's due October 15th, I did on the 14th, pat me on the back. I did it. And it's kind of like,
That's why I thought I'd ask. But Christian, will you bring up our screen for Spot On? Guys, check out our weekly Spot On Insurance podcast, because it's got over 150 episodes right now, and they're mostly centered around, a lot of them are centered around compliance. We're also doing these compliance.
These are COVID-19
COVID-19
episodes, so they're like bonus episodes. They're really, where this person, Lance Poole, we just interviewed him yesterday, and it was aired today.
It was
so
aired this morning, yeah.
Very timely, and it's all about the long-term effects of COVID-19 and what's going to be happening with the insurance industry. It
was really an outstanding episode. We've had several of them so far, and we're getting a lot of people writing in saying how much they are enjoying the episode. And Dennis, yeah, thanks for that. I'm glad you enjoyed that episode. But Dennis also did one just about 2 weeks ago, and his is, Arlene was looking at the numbers on LinkedIn and all the people that are getting out there and saying, wow, we really are enjoying these episodes. They're very informative.
So check those out. Like Ted said, we have a lot of episodes that are just having to do with compliance. And so we'll have regulatory attorneys that come on. We'll have executive directors from the different stamping offices on the surplus line side. And we'll have a lot of the Ilse experts come on and talk about just different things about mergers and acquisitions. I know a lot of you guys are with agencies that are doing a lot of acquisitions, and so those are really pertinent to what you guys are doing. Thanks, Christian. That's awesome.
Kelsey, any more?
There are not any more questions at this time. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat.
Okay, yeah. Arlene?
Questions, we got more time.
And also, guys, one of the things is, this is also about connecting, right? Connecting with peers. So if you just want to say hi, give us a shout out, so we can hear your voices, see your faces, you can unmute and say hi.
And I would love to hear what other people's experiences are right now, especially from the people who are remoting from home. Like, what are your major compliance issues right now?
And while we have this time, some of you also are in the area of surplus lines. So I also wanted Russ, if he could share a resource that we just developed. So recently we developed the surplus lines tax calculator. And that's a great resource for people, especially that are working from home. And Russ, you can explain it a little bit more.
Sure, Arlene. We had a ton of our surplus lines clients over the years have asked us if we had a calculator that they could use when they're binding policies to calculate the taxes that they should be collecting from their clients. And when we finally got the thing where we wanted it, it turned out to be so much more than just a calculator. We have this available for our clients in our surplus lines portal, but it's so handy. And because so many people are working from home now, we've actually set up a subscription. You can get 2 months free. Just go to our ilseinc.com website and go to resources. You'll find this page. It tells you all about it. As I said, it's so much more than just a calculator. You can get your state stamps, any special instructions, forms that you're going to need, just a ton of things that are handy all in one spot so that you can make sure that you're doing everything you need to do to collect the taxes, and even talks to you about how the states want to be paid. So just a ton of things that we think will be very useful for surplus lines folks. It's out there. Take a look, and hopefully it'll be something that you can use.
So any other questions? Christy from Florida, thank you for joining us. Dennis, thank you for joining us again. Cheryl Joe, howdy.
If you'd like to say anything, you can unmute your mic and chat a little bit. Please feel free to do so. this is about us, as Arlene said in the beginning, it is about us communicating with each other and seeing how everybody's doing. And we get to see babies, and we get to see dogs, and we get to see pets from time to
Something.
time.
I have
Oh,
something.
Hi.
I want to share something.
I want to like it, mommy.
Hey, Dennis. Hey,
Hey, guys.
Lisa. Go ahead, Lisa.
I just kind of wanted to share, we had a press release this week, just talk about any of our clients needing help with cybersecurity or data security. We've teamed up with RSI services, and they offer cybersecurity tools, and you get a discount for being an Ilse client. And so you can go under our services page on our website, go under services to cybersecurity, and learn more about it and take a free assessment tool, free assessment quiz.
Nice.
Hey, Lisandra.
So Dan, tell me, what were your thoughts on what you heard this morning?
As far as Lance,
Yeah.
yeah, I think hit the nail on the head as far as like talking about trying to relate it back to SARS, but not there is no metric for this. Like it's so beyond anything we've really dealt with before that yes, it's scary, but it's at least it sounds like insurance should be staying around for a while. So hopefully I still have a job.
Yeah.
So,
You had some really positive things to say about, just the new technology that's coming in and versus the old, and how the guys who are coming in for the insurtechs are not going to go away because all these guys are now looking at coronavirus has forced us to look at new technology. What are we going to do? How different way to do business? And that's what these guys are bringing in. So in the short term, he said there might not be a lot of people, a lot of these guys getting work, but in the long run, they're going to survive.
I even had that conversation.
yeah, I mean, yeah, even in that regard, it's like even now we're seeing like companies like Cowbell is offering social engineering fraud coverage, which they weren't before, which I consider that to be like a pinnacle part of cyber insurance versus an add-on now. So it's like it's also kind of making people step up to the occasion and actually offer robust policies. So again, where yes, the insurtechs are a good thing because they're making new technology, it's still you have to really read into that policy and make sure that they're they might be cutting edge, but they also might be cutting corners. So you really want to make sure that you have the right cyber policy on the back end of your cybersecurity.
Yeah, and I actually called Deanna, who's here, one of the participants, or I called her earlier, right before this meeting, because my email got bounced back. And so I was like, I gotta track her so that she could get the ID. And we were talking about, how everyone now is working remotely and what will it look like in the future, and we've talked about this with Russ, our general manager, how we were kind of very reluctant about employees working from home. And, in Texas, we have a team of 53 employees. And now that we're working all remotely, we're actually, it's probably going to look like a hybrid situation later on.
Yeah.
Right, Russ?
Oh yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag. We have a Zoom meeting every week to kind of connect everybody up, see how things are going, and let them know how we're doing. And Dennis was talking about kind of business on the other side of this, and our industry is still smoking along. We're still busy. We've got a lot of people that need compliance help, and so the work is there, and the folks at home are being productive. All the things that you worry about when you send somebody out to work from home. The few times that we've done it in the past, it was like our most trusted employees ever. Because
Right.
we didn't want them slacking off. We didn't want them working for somebody else while they were on our clock, that kind of stuff. And what we've seen is that people are staying busy. They're enjoying the flexibility. We have some folks, the managers have given them kind of leeway because, hey, kids got to go to school between this time and this time on the laptop. And so I got to stop what I'm doing and make sure my kid gets his school stuff in or her school stuff in. And then they get back on. They work till 6 or 7, but the work's getting done. They like that flexibility. But the other side of the coin is about a third of them are like, please God, let me get back to the office. I'm out of this house. So it's kind of a mixed bag. So I think the hybrid thing is probably spot on, because we're going to have some folks that, for whatever reason, are going to need to be able to be at home and maybe work from home sometimes, but they're not going to want to do it all the time. And we're going to, another third of them never want to come back to the office. And if they could turn off the video, they never want to see any of us again. But they do like the paycheck and they like the work. So
Hey,
we can work around that.
By the way, Sabrina and Christy, do you guys see Leslie?
I do.
Leslie is here. Leslie, you're up in Dallas, right?
I'm just outside of Dallas.
Yeah.
I'm up in North Texas.
I hope you're safe and healthy.
Yes, my little town, we have some cases, but for the most part, we're all staying safe and healthy here.
Awesome news. Awesome.
It's so good to see you, Leslie.
Good to see y'all too. I'm not on the Secretary of State filing side. I'm just on the education side, but I always like to learn new things. So lots of interesting information.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate it.
Of course.
Leslie, next week's session that we'll be doing next Thursday, same time, will be focused on licensing, continuing education, what's happening with it. So we're going to be addressing that. So it'll be stuff that's up your alley.
All right, I'll be there.
Yeah. Linda Sproul, do you have any questions for us? Good to have you on board. Tiffany and
I think we got some stage fright going on in here. The one that I would like to hear about is also what's it going like in Dallas right now. You mentioned a little bit. If you're from different states and you're experiencing something different, share it with us, because we all like to know what's going on beyond what the news is saying. But what you're experiencing personally, that's also nice for us to know, especially if it's in our industry.
Are there a lot of protests out there? There's apparently a protest in Maryland or in Baltimore that everyone's been kind of like sending around a viral video of a guy getting like pushed out of his car.
No, I had not seen that or heard that, and in Puerto Rico we're not having any of that.
Lucky you. Yeah, people are trying to express their freedom to do whatever they want, I guess, and it's been interesting to say the least.
Oh, I think what was good to know. One of the things that was rather sad yesterday, and Arlene was pretty much in tears about, was when she was seeing the lines in Florida for people getting food who don't, and they're interviewing these folks who are running out of food, and they're giving away all this food, and that was riveting.
yeah, I mean, I think for us in the insurance industry, we're fortunate that we are able to work and continue to get our incomes. I'm going to get all teary-eyed.
Okay, she cries at McDonald's commercials. Warning, warning.
But that we have our incomes coming in, and so many people just don't have that, and so it's sad when you see, the lines of cars pulling up to stores. But there's a lot of good that's being done. I read an article this morning that Publix is like, excess food, they're giving it out to the food banks. So that's so wonderful.
Oh, go ahead.
No, that's you.
I did hear that they've refunded the payday, the SBA payday loans that are going out there. So they are refunding some of those programs because they ran out almost instantly. So I did hear the Senate passed that. I think I read that last night somewhere. So I mean, that's good news. But there's two kinds of protests going on now. There's protests of people demanding to be able to go get their nails done, and then the nail technicians and the hairdressers are protesting that they don't want to have to be in people's faces.
Right. It's crazy.
Yes, because it's kind of like, I'm sorry, I really miss the real world. I want to go out there. I want to see people. I have teenagers who are dying to go outside.
Yeah, but I love my family, and I would like to keep them alive.
Yes, but I also have two at-risk people in my home. So it's frightening for us, and it's frightening for everybody. But it just boils down to, they are going to slowly, I guess, be trickling, and some states are just going to I guess, open the floodgates. But apparently being fed up, people are under the idea, which is scary, that just being fed up with quarantine means that it goes away. And it just because the quarantine goes away does not mean that we are over the hump, and we're still on the rise. So it's frightening. It is very frightening. And I can't imagine being an underwriter insurer, because the some of the laws, the emergency laws that they're passing now. I did a bulletin this morning that they are extending the group participation for disability insurance to contract workers, and to part-time workers and contract workers. So it's just kind of like can you imagine, if you're a business and you're supplying this, these group policies, and you're financially responsible for that they are extending that. So it's ever changing. I think it's going to be a long-lasting effect after this for all future crises.
We talk about this in this morning's COVID-19 episode. And we have to be aware that this is going to be long-term. This is not something that's going to be as short as people think it is. And the thing that you're hearing more and more is about what's going to happen when the flu and this COVID-19 merge. And that's another issue. Russ, we were talking about that earlier, and they're urging people to take flu shots now, right, Russ, for that?
Yeah, the last sort of addition to the guidelines is when flu season, and when we start approaching flu season. In fact, the advice was this summer, get your flu shot. But certainly before flu season kicks in, get your flu shot. And the rationale behind it is, if we do have a resurgence of COVID, maybe we can keep the flu down and we keep from overwhelming the hospitals, because you have both going on at the same time. Of course, they don't know for sure that COVID will be back in the fall, but they don't know that it won't. So,
well, on the safe side, I don't go out without my Jason mask.
Hey.
We actually were very fortunate that we had these incredible masks that are like P95 masks, and we got them way before this. Well, he got it from Home Depot for our renovation of our house, and we had 2 masks. So everyone, when we went out with them, they're like, "Where'd you guys get those masks?" Like, way before all of this happened, we already had them. But, I don't know if you guys are doing like things to like really stay healthy. Like Ted makes for us a drink in the morning with ginger, basil. We're drinking. Oh, look at you, Christy. Awesome.
I spray her ice sauce.
This is ginger and pineapple.
There you go. Stuff like that, especially lemon. Because lemon has been known to kill.
I'll have to try that. Ginger and pineapple? That sounds good.
We don't.
Cheryl Joe forgot her on. Hello.
Hi.
What state are you in?
I am in Georgia.
Okay, the state that's about to open it up for everyone.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to chime in and just say how much the news coverage is mentioning the reopening, and there's a lot of controversy around that.
Yes.
So I don't think it's going to go over well. I'm hearing a lot of people say that despite the governor allowing the reopenings, that they are going to remain closed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, as you guys have mentioned earlier, that this is going to be a very long-lasting situation. I spoke with a lady earlier, even today, that is looking into filing a grievance against her employer who did not allow her to work from home. So, when these type of liability issues materialize, I think we're going to see a lot along these lines.
Well, I think we're going to have Larry Schiffer back on at some point. He doesn't know it yet. Give him a little call. In another 2 weeks or so, we may have another COVID-19 to do with him, so he can bring up the legislation and what's going on, because they were really riveting.
Yeah, and Mary Jo Hudson was on that episode. She's the former insurance commissioner from Ohio. She has seen it all, and they did just such a tremendous update for us on that episode last Friday, I believe.
And we know it's constantly changing, so the idea of having them back for the COVID-19 would be to update us on what else is happening in the
Very timely, yes.
timely, and they're real experts on the subject. So it's
I
good
mean,
to have
you
them.
have that same situation happening in Nevada. You know, the mayor of Las Vegas, she
did
came
an
out
interview.
yesterday and said, you know, let's reopen everything without having a game plan for that reopening. But their governor is also kind of against that. You know, he's like, we've got to protect our employees first and foremost. And employees there are like, we're not ready to go back until you have, you know,
I mean, I would love, you know, like everybody else, I would love to go back to normal. I have restaurants, enjoy going here near the beach.
He's a foodie. He loves food.
but until this is cleaned up, no, thank you. I've got to figure out a way. You know,
Well, they were saying,
Hey, I know this morning 2 extra people, because we have skeleton crews in the office right now. 2 extra people came upstairs, and I was like, why are they there? Why are they here? Why is there so many people here? It's 2 extra people.
Because they know we buy lunch on Thursdays.
You had something?
Well, you know.
it's really sad that people will value the dollar over human life. I mean,
yeah.
that's what going back early is doing, basically.
But like you said, even if they do open them, I don't think a lot of people will go to those
Will do, right.
places.
Especially those with high risk people in their home, or if they themselves are high risk, because you know what do we do if we find out we open things up even gradually, or if we just open the floodgates and we overwhelm the doctors and nurses who are already overwhelmed, and the hospitals, and the worst case scenario comes true because social distancing is working. So if we turn off social distancing, doesn't mean that the virus is going away, and it doesn't mean that it's still not highly contagious. So, you know, what do we do? There's still going to have to be precautions. I mean, people are going to have to take their own precautions, but when they open up the floodgates and say you can go back to work, then the federal aid for you to stay at home dries up as well. So it's going to hurt small businesses who don't feel safe opening back up to the public.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you something. My new hairdresser is right here.
Oh God.
No,
I'm not a very good hairdresser.
Yeah.
Kimberly Snavely, what state are you located in?
I'm in Tennessee.
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 Tell us about Tennessee. What's going on?
I live in a very rural part of Tennessee called Tennessee City, Tennessee. But we're a big farm community, so everybody's out still working. And I mean, they got to work the fields. They got to take care of the livestock. So, I mean, everybody's trying to social distance, but everybody's got to work their farm.
Yeah, well, I mean, here we've got people that are, for example, landscaping, gardeners, things like that. They're able to go out and do that work. A lot of the times they'll wear the mask, but they are social distancing automatically because nobody's around them when they're using that machinery and throwing crap all over, right? Automatic social distancing. Well, farming is the same thing. You're out there, for the most part, working alone or working in separate areas. So I don't see why that would be an issue.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, and I would love.
Can I kick in?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Just real quick. Rich Brand, I'm sitting down in Phoenix, Arizona, and we're a unique player in the fact that we do surety and insurance, and knock on wood, things continue to demonstrate themselves well because we're in the transportation space. And so that being said, I was in a discussion earlier today. If you can recall back in the 80s when London got hammered with environmental and asbestos claims, our friends over in London are very concerned on what our U.S. government may do in trying to broaden business interruption. So I reference that because many of you work with London underwriters, and if that financially impacts them to the same extent that it did in the 80s, this could have a huge impact, not just on them. Just think of the financial impact to our insurance providers. So I give you a commentary to that perspective, because there is a lot of concern that which, we think falls outside of surplus lines may be brought in, right, by these DOIs. And
Yeah.
Absolutely.
while I can appreciate trying to take care of people, when you start putting insurance companies out of business, you're not helping certain people that are employed in that space.
Yeah.
So that factor, we have a son who's a RN, and he's taking care of COVID-19s in Charleston, South Carolina. So keep your hands clean, use appropriate social distancing, don't subject yourself to these things, definitely be cautious of your health. And you may not realize what health factors you are susceptible to. You think you're healthy. He just sent me an item from the Nursing Association that there are young people suffering strokes related to COVID-19.
Yes. Well, I was reading those articles.
Blood clots.
So there's a lot of things that we're at risk for. I personally have sleep apnea. I know people that have, other factors with asthma and that. So when your body stresses out from this, that's really ultimately what leads to your demise. So stay as healthy as you can and away from people. Our business, has been steady even on the bond side. But that being said, you're hearing small businesses that are not renewing today, and will they come back in 30 or 60 days? But today I don't have the money.
Yeah.
So we did have a couple good meetings with our trucking association. I sit on a board here in Arizona for that. And you've got your UPS, FedEx guys. UPS considers themselves the United Pandemic superheroes, right? Because they're running harder than ever to deliver stuff to our homes. But the flatbed guys aren't moving stuff because we're not building homes, and all the plants are shut down. And the cars aren't moving, so all your auto manufacturer, facilities that are fed or take autos out. So there's a lot of suppression in our economy that are impacting people. And we had a interesting protest here in Arizona where we had people from out of state coming in to protest at our state saying, open it back up. And it's like, you go back to Colorado, right? We're going to take care of our stuff here. And yet we sit next to California, and there's just segments. And sadly, there's segments that we're learning more and more about, of nursing homes and group homes for mentally distressed people. And when you get into a cluster like that can become horrific. So if you have any family that way, I mean, I'm sorry to hear that, and we pray for them, because you can't get away when you're in that confined setting. So
yeah, we have that situation. But guys, it's a little bit after 4. Please join us next week for Compliance Conversation. Thank you for that. Yes, great information.
And Richard, I don't know if you did catch the podcast that we were talking about, but yeah, that's the scary thing about the business interruption, and that there's pending legislation to make it retroactive for policies that were never sold to begin with. That is going to be a big thing for the insurance industry if that gets passed. So we covered that in last week's episode with Larry Schiffer and Mary Jo Hudson. So yeah, everybody in the insurance industry, of course, is just waiting to see what's going to happen with that.
Our apologies, guys, because each time you want to come in here, you're going to have to, for the compliance conversation, it changes every week. So you have to actually sign up to be able to get the code to come in. We have been having some issues with the codes, by the way. The emails kind of been blacklisted. So some people have not received it. So we're dealing with that now. So there's always little issues.
Actually, one of the things that we talked about right before we came on this session with our team is that we are going to, if you've attended a session before, we're automatically going to be sending you the meeting ID. And then
Gotta go. Oh, sorry.
And just people that are registering that are brand new, we'll send them the meeting ID, separately. But if you've attended a meeting ID, a session before, we'll be sharing that with you.
All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you for joining
Thank you
us.
so much.
guys.
Look forward to seeing some of you next week.
Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.